On today's show, the Hawks get a very, very impressive and resilient victory at home on this Monday evening over the Minnesota Timberwolves to get back to 15-15 on the season. We'll get into how it unfolded, how the Hawks won this game in kind of surprising fashion, and much more. And all of that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1873 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday. It's almost Christmas. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody listening to the podcast. And today's show is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late, though, to get on the regular season action at FanDuel, because right now, if you're a new customer, you can finish the season strong with $250. That's $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. Place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show to make sure your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. And please like this video on YouTube as you are watching it. And once again, subscribe and tell your friends about the podcast. And today's show will focus on what became a 117-104 home win for the Hawks on this Monday into Tuesday. And they snapped a losing streak in the process. They had lost 3 games in a row. And with this win, they're back to 500 on the season, 15-15 through 30 games. A nice, round, comfortable number going into the Christmas mini break here with 2 days off. The Hawks were actually up by 19 points in the first half and then let it all slip away. Trailed at times in the second half of this game, but then they stayed engaged, showed a lot of resilience, I thought, in this one. And then honestly had a fantastic fourth quarter to kind of blow things open. They were in control to the point where they actually won this game fairly comfortably, and they actually were able to pull the starters in the last couple minutes of this game. So it was a very impressive performance, especially when factoring in they weren't even at full strength. Trae Young was questionable coming in. He ended up playing after missing the game on Saturday, but Bogdanovich did not play in this game due to a left lower leg contusion. And Minnesota was at full strength, basically, with the rotation. And the Hawks were 3.5-point underdogs at home, according to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. But the way that I'll start talking about this game in a more broad sense is that this is not exactly the way that I would have guessed this was going to play out if you told me beforehand the Hawks were going to win. I thought it was a very winnable game for Atlanta, as I did say and write in advance of the game. But I would have guessed if they were going to win this game, they would kind of win on the margins more than they did tonight. They've had all kinds of turnover issues in recent days that actually continued today, honestly. And then maybe I thought they were going to win the possession battle if they won this game. They did not do that at all. They actually got worked on the margins in this game. They had 23 turnovers, and they just outshot the Wolves, honestly, in a large portion of this game. And look, that happens sometimes. You got to have some good fortune with variance sometimes, and you have to win in more areas than others. Certainly can help you to kind of, push up things and, winning on in every side of the game. But in the end, shooting is the ultimate equalizer, for better or worse. And the Hawks shot the ball very well, and that was what kind of led them overall to this win. I do want to start with the defense, though, because I will say this. It was really, really good for parts of this one. And it's been a theme for the Hawks for a while. They've been playing really well on the whole the last 3 or 4 weeks, and Atlanta's defense has been really the number one strength in that run. And tonight, they had a 102 defensive rating, and that speaks for itself, quite honestly. That's an excellent number. That would be like a league number over the course of the season. They had a 79 defensive rating in the fourth quarter. The Wolves scored 19 points in the fourth. In fact, the Hawks had the Wolves to 19 points in 2 different quarters in this game. Now, in the middle, it was not so good, but at the same time, the four-quarter production was quite strong. Minnesota shot the ball below average, 43% from the field in this one. Nothing terribly insane as far as like poor shooting from the Wolves either, but the Hawks only allowed 13 free throw attempts, which is really, really good. They forced 21 turnovers. That led to 26 points for the Wolves. They had 15 steals in this game to go along with 6 blocks. We'll discuss Dyson Daniels later on in the podcast more often, but he was absolutely unbelievable in this game defensively. 8 steals, 2 blocks, and he held Anthony Edwards, not by himself, but certainly he was the primary guy, Anthony Edwards, holding him to 16 points on 20 shots. So Dyson was just fantastic in this one. He was kind of the headliner defensively for Atlanta. And the only issue that the Hawks had in this game was defensive glass. They allowed 19 second chance points, but they kind of managed to weather that storm on the whole. And it wasn't perfect. Like I alluded to earlier, the middle part of this game, the Wolves got a lot of good looks. Like there was some overhelping from the Hawks in the middle portion of the game. They allowed some wide open threes that the Wolves made some of. They also missed some too. And some of that, again, goes back to some the need for some good fortune every once in a while. But the Hawks really did buckle down defensively at the end of this game. And look, it's been a pretty good defense for a while now. And it's not, I say pretty good intentionally. Like they're not an elite defense still right now, but they're playing well. It's been their best defensive stretch for several years at this point in time. And the Hawks are just playing strong basketball man on the floor. It's a team effort too. Like obviously Dyson's a star, and I do mean that a star defensively. But other than maybe Clint Capella, they don't have another guy that's like a really awesome defender. It's just that they have a lot of good, solid defenders. And being without Bogey in this game does help your defense, honestly. Trae was the only weak spot defensively. Obviously, Garrison Mathews not a great defender either. He ended up playing a lot, and by the way, playing extremely well in this game. But on the whole, the Hawks did earn this one defensively in a big way. Offensively, it actually was only about league average on the whole. A 115 offensive rating in this one. And as I said earlier, like it was not exactly expected the way that they did it in this game. They shot the ball well from the field, 53%, but the big thing was that they were 18 of 36 from three, 50%. 50% from three in this game. Now, the attempts actually, that's not a ton of attempts. It's like a pretty average number of attempts. Like that actually only ranks like 15th. Yeah, almost exactly the Hawks' average output in attempts. But it was their best percentage game of the year. 50% is their best percentage game of the year. It's not exactly a shock, but the Hawks have now won 5 of their top 6 3-point percentage games this season. The only loss of that run was actually the game against the Spurs just a few days ago in San Antonio on Thursday. But they, generally speaking, when you shoot that well from 3, you tend to win, and that was the case for the Hawks in this one. Garrison Mathews was the biggest part of that. He hit 7 threes, but Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, and Larry Nance combined, the 3 of them, to go 9 of 16 as well. So the 4 of those guys, Mathews, Young, Hunter, and Nance, hit 16 threes out of the 18 for Atlanta, and that was a big part of that. And honestly, they needed that because the rest of the offense wasn't great in this game. They did win the free throw battle decisively. They took twice as many attempts as the Wolves did in this game. They also ran well. They had 19% transition frequency in this one, which actually helped because there were some issues when the game slowed down with the Hawks unable to kind of generate good looks at times in this one. And part of that was, by the way, Rudy Gobert was great defensively for the Wolves in this game. He did hamper their offense, though, and that allowed or maybe paved the way for him not to close the game. And the Hawks took advantage of that. As he was out of the game, the Hawks went right to the rim more often than not. And Gobert's defense is great, but his offense is not. So that kind of paved the way in a lot of different ways. Now, what I will say is while I led with the positive in that little mini segment about the Hawks offense with their great shooting in this game, they did have some issues. They had 23 turnovers in this one. Now, Minnesota is a top 5 team in the NBA in defensive turnover creation, similarly to Memphis, who also throttled the Hawks to 25 turnovers on Saturday. So it isn't a big surprise that the Hawks had ball security issues in this game, but that's way too many. The only bright spot is that they only had 4 in the fourth quarter. Now, 4 isn't actually great for a quarter, but 4 is fine for a quarter, and they only had 4 in the fourth. That came after having 9 in the third. So that kind of tells you a little bit how that game kind of went. But they overcame that, and honestly, pretty poor offensive rebounding as well. This is kind of a funny stat. The Hawks only had 6 offensive rebounds in the entire game, and 4 of them were Clint Capella. So only 2 for the rest of the team in that area. So some of that's personnel-based. They don't really have a ton of, without a Kongwu, they don't really have a ton of guys who crashed the offensive glass other than Capella. But still, they didn't really win on the margins at all. But hey, 4 guys with 17 points or more for Atlanta in this game. And sometimes you just have to have an outlier shooting night. And the Hawks didn't necessarily need to shoot 50% from 3 to win this game because they won this game fairly comfortably by the end. But they did need to shoot the ball well. If they hadn't, they would have lost, honestly. And they did a really good job also generating good looks. They sprayed the shooters. They moved the ball and passed the ball effectively. They didn't overpass the entire game. There was obviously some of that with the turnovers, but they got some good looks and converted them. Garrison was the outlier in a good way in this game, but the Hawks did a good job at least getting 2 some threes that they actually kind of had to have along the way. And look, I would say overall a very, very good win for the Hawks. They were underdogs in this game for a reason. They kind of, you kind of had that shooting night that you have every once in a while, but they did that without either their best shooter or one of their best 2 or 3 shooters at the very least in Bogdanovic. And in the fourth quarter, it was awesome. For a 10-minute stretch in the fourth quarter, it was 35-15. They dominated the crunch time portion of this game. So I'll have more details in a second about how this one unfolded, but certainly a very, very good, resilient, and impressive win for Atlanta. They break down in the fourth quarter and how that all unfolded as well. All that and more in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you do not need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. And now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the variable rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold also provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth, and generous benefits are available now for only $5 per month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That's robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, and it was kind of a roller coaster game in some respects. I kind of alluded to that earlier a little bit, but now we'll kind of get into that in more detail. The Hawks had a great start to this one, a 14-4 run to begin the game. Jalen found Trae twice to open the game as well. They were kind of drawing some attention there. It was a good kind of game plan thing that the Hawks did, kind of a small wrinkle there, some 1-4 pick and roll with Jalen, and even some 4-1, I should say, pick and roll with Jalen and Trae as a screener. Quinn used a challenge early in this game. I ended up winning. I liked it. Even though I don't love that kind of challenge usually, but number one, it was very winnable, and they ended up winning it. And then also, it was to save Dyson Daniels a foul, and Dyson was a big factor on Anthony Edwards in this game. I don't think Dyson would have been in foul trouble anyway, but certainly would have. That was part of the calculus I have to imagine for Quinn to challenge that early in the game. Trae had 10 of the first 14 points, including one of those one-legged threes that everybody happens to hate until he actually makes them. He made 2 of those in this game. That's always funny to me, the reactions, at least once they go in, and then everybody's fine with them. Rotationally, it was a pretty notable change, actually, for the Hawks in this game. They took Trae and Jalen out together several times. And for the most part this year, not the entire season, but most of the season, they've been staggering Trae and Jalen so that one of them's on the court at all times. I generally like that plan better, to be honest. Like it quote unquote worked tonight to have them separate a little bit, but at the same time, they've gotten absolutely killed with those guys off the court at the same time for the season. Tonight they didn't. Tonight they were actually slightly in the positive when those guys were off the floor at the same time, which is a miracle. But I didn't love the idea, but maybe it will work better than I think it's going to work. TBD on that. Rotationally, no big surprises. The Hawks only had 11 guys available. And honestly, it was the 9 guys I expected to play. They did go to Vit Krejci over Keaton Wallace, which I know bothered some people. I thought Vit was fine in this game, as we'll get into later on. And the Hawks, actually, the numbers kind of support that a little bit better than people might think. But other than that, it was Nance's backup center, DeAndre Hunter, and Garrison Mathews as the bogey replacement at the 2. Nance and Capella had interesting games on both sides. I actually liked the way they handled the 2 of them in this game for the most part. It was Capella a lot against Rudy. Capella had a rough offensive game for sure, especially at the beginning of the game. And Gobert was a factor, but the Hawks, I think, did a good job of using Nance to spread things out a little bit, and then had Capella as their strong defensive fulcrum when he was in the game. I thought that was well handled, I would say, for the Hawks. They were up 19 points in the first quarter, were the Hawks. And after that, you might, if you didn't watch the game, if I tell you that, it's like, oh, it's smooth sailing. It was not smooth sailing from that point forward. But the Hawks actually had a couple of possessions early in that first quarter that were not great possessions that they ended up scoring on because they kind of just made shots. That was the theme of the game in a lot of ways, but it happened. They were up 16 points at the end of the first quarter. They shot 7-11 from 3 to the Hawks in that first period, but then things flipped immediately in the second. In fact, the Hawks, after being up by 19 points at the late in the first quarter, were losing at halftime. So the second quarter was a disaster for Atlanta. They tended to run to open things up for Minnesota, and then Minnesota kept going and going. They hit 4 threes in 4 minutes at one point in time. The Hawks defensively were kind of over-helping a little bit in that stretch. Ricochet had a bad 9-second sequence where I think he had 3 mistakes in a row. Just kind of happens sometimes for a rookie, but still, to their credit, Garrison bombed a couple threes in that stretch, but the offense was really brutal the entire quarter. 5 of 21 from the field, 5 turnovers, 17 points for Atlanta's offense. It was really, really rough stuff. And they were down by 19 points in that quarter to lose the quarter by 19 and be down 3.5. It's tough to be down by 3 at halftime when you make 10 threes, as the Hawks did. But fortunately, the shooting allowed them to kind of stay afloat because they did not play well at all in that second period. In the third, it was, spoiler alert, dead even overall. And the offense was much better in that third quarter. They had 11 points to begin the quarter in about 3 minutes. A 3 by Ricochet, Jalen, a nice lob pass to Capella. Generally, they kind of just had better process in that third quarter. A couple of hiccups along the way, but then they scored 5 straight points to take the lead, actually. And I think at one point they scored on 6 straight possessions in the third quarter. They were really effective there. Richard had a nice finish with his left hand. Hunter hit a tough three, but still some turnover issues along the way. They had 9 giveaways in that third quarter, and they shot really well to stay in the game, obviously, but the turnover problems were the turnover problems. And one of the highlights of the night, actually, they had a pretty bad turnover at the end of the third quarter that led to a run-out dunk by the Wolves with like 4 seconds to go. But Garrison Mathews, who was one of the stars of the night for the Hawks, pulls out a legitimately 90-foot baseball pass on the inbounds, hits Jalen at a perfect spot, and Jalen finishes at the rim. And that was kind of a way to steal 2 points. That ended up being a big swing in the game, I thought, at the very end of the quarter. In the fourth, as I sort of detailed already a little bit, at least in brief terms, the Hawks were dominant in the fourth quarter. It started out with a 13-4 run to go from being down 3 to up 6. They had 3 threes, including 2 by Garrison. Garrison had 7 threes with 9 minutes to go in the game. That was his end of his three-point barrage, but still, he was just unbelievable as a shooter in this one. They tried to get some minutes stolen with Trae on the bench, which I obviously have to do at some point. And they did, I thought, sit him a little bit too long. And I got to be honest with you, if you watch it back, it was not good process offensively with Trae off the court in that stretch. But V hit a tough floater. Jalen hit a pretty tough shot off the glass. Capella had a nice tip-in off of a miss by Dyson Daniels at the rim. And then Garrison drew a semi-controversial 3-shot foul that the Wolves were really mad about. They didn't challenge. That was kind of smart they didn't challenge. Anyway, one of those things where they did enough with Trae on the bench. And they weathered that storm. When Trae came back in, they were still in control of the game. Dyson had this stretch where he had 2 just incredible steals in about a minute late in the fourth quarter. He just rips Randall in help position. And the next possession, and honestly, a great, unbelievable play against Mike Conley for his 8th steal of the game. And that was part of the stretch where the Hawks actually got 6 stops in 7 possessions defensively. And then at the end of that run, their last 2 sequences were stop, Trae, passes to Jalen. Then Trae passes a 3 for DeAndre Hunter for a semi-dagger to go 15 points. Now, it wasn't over at that point in time. The Wolves did score twice in a row to get back to 11, but then on cue, Trae hits back-to-back threes that were dagger 1, dagger 2, or how do you want to say that? They were massive shots to kind of make sure the game was out of reach. And the first 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, it was 35-15. 35-15. And I gave this stat already once, but I'll say it again now. They had a 79 defensive rating in the fourth quarter. Just turn the water off on the Wolves. And it wasn't like the Wolves got no good looks. Like, they missed some decent shots. I will be honest. I watched the whole fourth quarter again. It wasn't like the Hawks, it's hard to deserve a 79 defensive rating. That's really, really excellent stuff. But the Hawks did a good job the whole quarter. Nothing easy from the Wolves, really, that whole fourth period. Edwards had some tough shots that he's often will make, sometimes will make, but he missed some of those. But nothing was open for the Wolves like that. And that was with the Minnesota going offense first a lot at the end of the game. There was no Gobert. They were playing 5 out. They were contesting really well. The Hawks did a really good job defensively and kind of turned the water off there. So it was good to see that, and an impressive run in the fourth quarter. So certainly a tale of 3 quarters, basically. The third quarter was a literal wash at 30-3, but the Hawks dominate early. The Hawks dominate late. They get dominated a little bit in the middle of the game, but you'll take that all day long because the Hawks ended up winning this game again semi-comfortably. They were up 17 points with 3 minutes to go. Garbage time didn't go their way, but like 13-point win, and that's what we'll leave it for now. We will get into the individual player stuff, and by the way, I have lots of notes and season highs and career highs, et cetera, on Garrison Mathews, Dyson Daniels. Trae was really good in this game as well. We'll get into all of that and more in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you finish the season strong with $250. That's $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. There's so many ways for FanDuel to give you a W this season. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, also FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use as well. It gives you everything that you need to place all your bets in one place. And they have everything that you're looking for in sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads, money lines, player props and game props, future bets, same-game parlays, live betting, and so much more. The app at FanDuel is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA and the NFL, of course, plus college football, baseball stuff, WNBA, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer. That means domestic leagues, international leagues, etc. auto racing from F1 and NASCAR. They have boxing, MMA, and so much more. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance to get $250 in bonus bets. That's $250 in bonus bets if you join today at FanDuel.com and place a $5 bet that you win. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so the individual player breakdowns in this game. 9 guys appeared in rotation minutes for Atlanta. We did get to see David Roddy and Vit Krejci David Roddy and Keaton Wallace in the final minute of the game. Nothing really to add there. Bogey was out in this game, so the only active players were, at least in the rotation, were the 9 guys who appeared, plus Keaton and Roddy. Krejci played the least at 17 minutes, 2 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist for Vit, +4, 1 of 1 on twos, 0 of 1 on threes. I thought Vit looked more comfortable. They played more through Dyson Daniels, I thought, when it was no Trae, and Vit played with Dyson more. I like that better, at least the way that it looked today. Dyson's a little bit more comfortable on the ball than Vit is. Vit as a secondary guy, kind of playing off the catch, being a little bit more decisive, breaking the paint, good spray out passes. Like Vit has good ball movement and good like connective skills that have not popped so much lately because he's been playing more point guard. I thought it worked in this game. He still wasn't like fantastic, but he was fine. I think defensively he was much better in this game than he was on Saturday, where I thought he was pretty bad. Nice to see him bounce back a little bit and play well. Larry Nance Jr., 21 minutes, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks for Larry Nance in this game, +8. 2 of 4 from 3. Those were his only attempts. No 2-point attempts at all. I think defensively he was fine in this game. Anchored up decently well. The shooting provides some value. The Hawks were good as far as like getting some more space, generally speaking, with Nance on the court offensively. And as usual, basically, as I would say this, the numbers bear this out too. They were better on offense with Nance and better on defense with Capella. And that's not a huge surprise. That's kind of the way you would think it would be at this point in time. And it was, if you track the play-by-play, as both eye test and the stats in this one. I thought Nance did a really good job in this game. Garrison Mathews was the story of the night, arguably, for Atlanta. A season high for him in points. Not quite a career high. He was 3 short of that, but 25 points for Garrison is a season high. He tied his career high with 7 threes, and this time around he was 7 of 8. So in his previous career high game, he was 7 of 13, but it was his best shooting night ever, essentially. 7 of 8 from 3, just unbelievable stuff. And honestly, he passed on one that he probably should have taken. I think he knew it too, and then he took I think a couple more right after that and made them both. But I thought Garrison really active. He was decisive for the most part. Got to the line for 5 attempts. Had 2 steals. Was really active defensively. I think it was one of his better defensive games of the season, if not his best. Probably he was really at least plugged in there. He's always limited, but certainly played well in this one. And the shooting is speaking for itself. Like he was just hugely valuable. No bogey. Like he's the only guy that played in the rotation tonight that I would call a knockdown shooter. Maybe you could say Trae as well, of course. Like Trae's a little bit different, but like Garrison was the floor spacer in this game. Hunter can shoot too. Like let's say other guys can't shoot, but Garrison Mathews is a shooting specialist. That's what he is, and he was ready to do that. He was giving all kinds of platitudes to the assistant coaching staff, keeping him ready to play, and he was really good in this game. There's nothing much more to add. He had a great shooting night, and the Hawks needed him big time in this one. DeAndre Hunter has been awesome. I mean, I'm running out of things to say about DeAndre Hunter the last couple of weeks. But 19 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists for Hunter. He was +15. That was a bench best for Atlanta. He was 2 of 2 on twos, 3 of 7 from 3. Got to the line 6 times. Hunter has now scored 15 points or more in 12 consecutive games, all of which have been off the bench. Just an absurd run for him. That is the longest streak of 15 points or more off the bench in the NBA since Tyler Hero like 3+ years ago. So it's not normal for this to be happening. Also, the longest run by a Hawk ever in 15 points or more in bench games. Eventually have a bad shooting night. He's actually already had one in this stretch as well. But he's playing really well, and they closed with him as they should have. And the Hawks have done a good job keeping his minutes down. It's been a nice balance, and it's worked very well for him and the team in recent days. To the starters, Zachary Richelet, 19 minutes. He was pretty quiet in this one. 5 points, did 3 turnovers. Like I don't think it was a good game for Richelet necessarily, but he was better after he bounced back. So he had this really rough stretch in the second quarter where he was like lighting things on fire, honestly. It was very rookie-like for a little while for Richelet in that second quarter. But when he came back in the second half, he was solid. I think defensively he did his job in this game. Like he was, getting special on Ant. He was being physical with Randall. Like he did a good job there. Offensively, it was not a big factor at all. I won't lie to you about that. But had an assist, like did his job mostly in this game. It was not great, but certainly was didn't kill them at all. Clint Capella, 4 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal for Clint in 26 minutes, +7 for him. Offensively, it was not a good game for Clint. I will say he was the only one that did anything on the glass offensively. But the big thing is, as I sort of teased earlier with Nance, the Hawks had a 94 defensive rating in Clint's 26 minutes. That's not all on him, but he was really good defensively, I thought, in this one. Offensively, it was not good. It was one of his worst offensive games in a while, honestly. But defensively, he was a big factor. So he didn't play great on the whole, but on defense, he was very valuable in this game. Jalen Johnson, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Like, Jalen did a very solid job in this game. Like, he's like 5th billing on the crazy list because Trae had been good. Garrison, season best. Dyson, as we'll get to in a second, was unbelievable. Hunter's run, all that stuff. Jalen was good in this game. It's just that he was like normal good for him, and his normal is really good. Again, 17, 11, and 7 with 2 steals, 1 turnover. Like, he did a good job. 0-3 from 3, but like he was 8 of 11 on 2s. Like, was just roundly good, I would say, in this one. Dyson Daniels, 10 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I'll stop there. That's perfectly fine. Like, offensively, he was actually pretty aggressive in this game. He handled the ball more than he has in recent days. Good passing, good penetration. We'll stop there and just say this. Defensively, he was out of this world. Like, he's often really, really excellent. I think he's been an all-defense first-team type of guy this year so far. But offensively, he was good in this game. Defensively, he was otherworldly. So he ends the game with 8 steals and 2 blocks. Also was a game best +16, which is not a huge surprise because he was just game wrecking. That's a career high for him, by the way, in steals with 8. He's the first NBA player with 8 steals in the game of any kind since 2021. So already 8 steals is really rare. It's happened once in the last 3 years. It was tonight. Beyond that, first player with 8 steals and 2 blocks in a game since Draymond Green in 2017. That is 7+ years ago at this point. We're almost in 2025 now. He's the only Hawk to ever have 8 steals and 2 blocks in a game, ever. Now, granted, steals were not counted until 1974, so it could happen before that, and we wouldn't know it. But still, that's a long time. That's 50 years of data. He's the only Hawk to ever do what he did tonight with 8 steals and 2 blocks. So, like, I'll stop now. He's still leading the league comfortably in steals. He's up to 3.2 per game now. Like, he's been outrageous defensively. But truly in this game, like, the combination of doing all of that as far as, stocks is concerned and activity and making plays and locking up Anthony Edwards. Like, Edwards is a very good player. And it wasn't just because Dyson was like, I always say this, stars can't be just taken away by anyone. But Dyson did a fantastic job contesting shots against Edwards without fouling and still being able to make plays as well. It's a difficult balance that like most guys cannot do, and he can. So I've been praising him since the summer. He's been a culture changer defensively for the Hawks, and that was the case in this game. And then Trae Young, 29 points, 7 assists for Trae, +9. He was 4 of 8 on 2s, 4 of 7 on 3s, not a 12 at the free throw line. He has been ramping things up as a scorer recently, despite not giving anything back in assists. So when I say that, he's averaging 26 points per game last 6. First time in that 6-game run, he's not actually gotten to 10 assists, but part of that was that he didn't need to in this game. And my friend Kevin Chenard noted this during the game from Hawks.com. The Hawks have been facing some high-end rim protectors in recent days, and they've kind of been playing a little bit differently because teams are not blitzing Trae quite as much as they were early in the season. And now Trae's playing more as a scorer. He's responded to that. He was really efficient in this game. 29 points on 21 possessions is excellent. The passing's still there. Like, he was just really good in this game again. So basically everyone played well for Atlanta. The only guys that I would say were like below their norm, maybe Ricochet, maybe you could say Capella because of the offense, but everybody else was at or above their norm in this game. And that's kind of what you need to have a double-digit win over a good opponent. So on the whole, again, one more time, it was an awesome performance from the Hawks. It really was. So I'll leave it there for now. A encouraging performance that also bounced back from 3 straight losses. And like I was trying to tell people the other day, like there's no reason to get too low on the losses or too high on the wins. But going into Christmas, you get 2 days off now, as I'll say right now before we get out of here. The Hawks now have 2 days off before they play again at home on Thursday against the Bulls. Like, having a home stand over Christmas is good. I'm sure everyone wants to go home. Maybe you have one day to go somewhere else if you needed to for the Hawks. But they will play on Thursday evening at home against the Bulls. And look, the Hawks have been struggling, let's just say, against the Bulls in recent days. They're actually, I think, 1-5 in their last 6 against Chicago. which is a weird matchup and some stuff there. But that'll be an interesting little test for Atlanta. Chicago's not as good as Minnesota, but that's a losable game for sure if you don't play well. So they have to get reset and get ready to go. But 15-15 through 30 games. I might do a show at some point between now and Thursday. If I don't, sue me. But 30 games, like, to be where the Hawks are with the injuries they've had, with this kind of retooling season, they had very modest expectations outside of that building. It's been pretty solid. 15-15 is not like something to write home about necessarily. I get all that, but they've been playing pretty well, and this is a good win to kind of go into this little mini break because, by the way, looming next week, actually later this week, technically, Hawks have this very long road trip that goes to the West Coast, always a test. So banking wins before that is very useful and a good way to kind of end the first, third plus of the season. Okay, that's all I have on this Monday evening, Christmas edition, basically, of the podcast. Please go ahead and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, et cetera. Please follow the show on YouTube as well. Subscribe there and like this video as you're watching it. Leave comments if you want to. All that's appreciated. And the best thing you can possibly do to support the podcast is to go ahead and subscribe on audio and on video. That'd be huge. Tell your friends about the show as well. Follow the show on Twitter /X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right. That's the last show, I think, between now and the Christmas holidays. So please hold on tight. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays to everyone. There's a huge NBA slate on Christmas as always. The whole league is off on Tuesday for Christmas Eve, so nothing going on there. I might have a show. Maybe if something breaks, I don't know. We'll see. No promises. If not, I'll take a little bit of a mini break with everybody else. I'll have a show after the game on Thursday, as I always do. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast and supporting the show as you have for almost 1,900 episodes at this point in time. Very much appreciated. One more time, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you all next time.